Welcome to this masterclass on giving the spiritual exercises. I'm Tom Elliott. For those of you who may not yet know me, I have been involved in the ministry of spiritual direction for over 20 years. Part of that time, about a third of that time, I have been doing spiritual direction and supervision full-time under the umbrella of Deepwardly LLC. In addition to directing and supervising about 70 men and women from across the country each month, I also own a school that trains spiritual directors from all different backgrounds and faiths. We train them in the evocative contemplative method in the Ignatian tradition within Christianity from that perspective. And then my wife and I also own a place called Cedar Ridge. Carmel and I built Cedar Ridge a couple of years ago. It's not a retreat center because that kind of implies that there's lots of rooms, but we call it the retreat suite. In fact, we chose to do this video production here at the retreat suite. It's a 500 square foot suite where we host retreats for married couples as well as Ignatian silent retreats for individuals. And one of the blessings of Cedar Ridge is that retreatants can completely customize it. They can completely customize their retreat to their needs, to their time frame, to their dietary restrictions even, as well as the fact that Cedar Ridge is handicap accessible. So we feel unbelievably blessed to have an opportunity to do that. And I feel blessed that my wife Carmel shares my deep love of hospitality. So she's always here to greet people and to be a part of that process, which is a tremendous, tremendous blessing. In addition to those things, I'm also an author. I've written a couple of books on Ignatian spirituality, and some of the material from this masterclass is actually part of the research I've been doing for the next book. It won't be quite the context that this masterclass is in, but some of the material will in fact overlap. So I'm grateful to have this opportunity because it's helped me to process through some of this material in an even deeper way, which is a great help for writing. One of the greatest compliments I've ever been paid was by Father James Martin, who thanked me for adding to the opus of Ignatius's work. What he meant by that is every one of us as spiritual directors, through our ministry, through our writing, through our presentations, we continue to add to the work of St. Ignatius of Loyola. We continue to find new and creative ways to adapt his material to help people, to help our directees, to help the people who come to our presentations. And Ignatius desired that. I'll say more about that as we dive into the exercises where he gives us permission to do that. But part of what you're going to be experiencing in this masterclass is some of that opus that I've added to, some of the adaptations, some of the things that I've paid attention to as I have directed people for more than 20 years. So let's kind of dive into what this is all about. First of all, I want to say, the reason I'm calling it a masterclass on giving the spiritual exercises is because as I have supervised directors from programs across the United States, there's been a pretty common refrain from them. They explain to me that they don't feel competent in the spiritual exercises, that they struggle to understand what the exercises are really about and how to best apply them to their ministry. A master class, by definition, means we've already gotten some background, and now we're going to be taking it deeper to more of a graduate level, a graduate degree level. Okay? That's why I'm calling it a master class. You might very well be one of those directors who says, hey, I finished my program, I'm certified, but I don't feel like I have a grasp of this material. Well, my hope and prayer is that by the end of this course, you will feel like you understand deeply the spiritual exercises, and even more so, that you feel this proficiency, this competency in how you're using the spiritual exercises in your ministry with your directees. Now, it's a master class on giving the spiritual exercises. The reason I'm using that language is because that's the language that Ignatius uses in the spiritual exercises. He talks about two different people. There's the one who gives the exercises and the one who receives the exercises. And as trained and certified spiritual directors, you and I are invited to be on both ends of that spectrum, right? We're called to receive the spiritual exercises and to continue to grow in our own relationship with God, but we are entrusted in a special way with giving the spiritual exercises. Now, that's not language that I would generally use when it comes to talking about spiritual direction. Most of you have probably been trained in the evocative, contemplative, or non-directive method of spiritual direction, and we don't give stuff to our directees, but I'm using it here because it's the language that Ignatius uses. But what it really means is we're going to be looking at what we're invited to, what God entrusts us with when we companion with our directees, with the retreatants, what Ignatius called with the exercitants who are going through the spiritual exercises. So this is a masterclass on giving the spiritual exercises. Now, for those of you who may not already realize this, Ignatius's spiritual exercises is a retreat manual that was written 500 years ago that is entrusted to us as spiritual directors to be used and even creatively used for the sake of our directees' continued deepening in vulnerable intimacy with God. And so that is primarily what we will be looking at in this course. It's going to be rooted in that 500-year-old manual. So who is this class for? Specifically, this master class is for trained spiritual directors or those who are in training to be spiritual directors. It's already going to assume there's a little awareness, doesn't have to be much, but a little bit of awareness of who Ignatius is and what the spiritual exercises are, because we want to go to that deeper level with them. Some of you might also be asking, what's the certification upon completion of this course all about? So I want to offer a few things. First of all, it means that there's going to be required reading for this course. This isn't just about, hey, let's watch a few videos of Tom talking and then the whole thing will be over. No, there's going to be required reading, which you can do at your own pace, because the beauty of having this as an online class is you can do it at your own pace. If you're like me, maybe you don't read very fast, so you don't have to try to keep up with the rest of the class. You can go at your own pace. It also means there'll be video presentations to watch. I'm taking the time to record hours worth of presentations for the sake of, once again, our understanding and our proficiency and competence in the exercises. So there will be video presentations to watch. There are going to be quizzes and case studies. So there needs to be sort of a B-average competency across the board with these quizzes and case studies, so that there's a real sense that you've not just received and listened to information, but there's been an integration that has taken place, that you're taking what you're reading, taking what you're hearing in the presentations, and you're integrating it into your own ministry as a spiritual director. You're getting a grasp of it. And then lastly, there will be opportunities to connect with me as well as with other students as you go through this course, even though the other students are going to be at different places. Since everyone's going at their own pace, there'll still be that opportunity to connect with me with questions or some ideas, or to connect with the other students. And I'll say more about that in just a little while, of how we will connect with one another. While some of this introductory material is going to be stuff that you did learn in your training, the heart of this masterclass is going to be what I call the common fruit of the 4 weeks of the exercises, or the common fruit of the spiritual exercises. Most of you are already familiar probably with the 4 graces, the 4 desires that Ignatius invites us to pray for as we go through the 4 parts of that spiritual exercise retreat. But over the more than 20 years that I've been in this ministry, I have been researching and paying attention to, making connections about the types of fruit that I see manifested, that I hear directees talking about as they go through the spiritual exercises. I've seen some commonalities that are extremely important, commonalities that you and I need to take time to, in fact, reverence. And that's going to help us tremendously in our spiritual direction ministry. We're going to start noticing that when directees say certain things, it gives us an insight in where they are in the spiritual exercises, or where they are in relationship with God, which helps us to be a companion with them in being where they're at. Remember, this isn't about us trying to get people to somewhere else. It's about us helping them to be where they're at. The graces and the fruits of those 4 weeks, those 4 movements of relationship in the spiritual exercises can help tremendously with that. So let's look at the structure of the course. First of all, I'm going to offer an overview of Ignatian spirituality, an overview of the primary pillars of this spirituality that we attribute to Ignatius of Loyola. Then I'm going to offer an overview of the spiritual exercises retreat manual itself. In fact, we're going to go into detail in each of the parts, the annotations, the presupposition, the principle and foundation, and each of the 4 weeks of the exercises. Then I'm going to offer a presentation on the methods and resources that we might want to use as spiritual directors to lead someone through the spiritual exercises. And then, and this is the heart of the whole masterclass, then I'm going to present the common fruit that you and I will notice in our directees that help us to know with greater certainty. We can never know with perfect certainty, but to know with greater certainty where they are so that we can be with them in that place and encourage them to be where they are in relationship with God. Now, as I prepared this class, I reached out to some different spiritual directors who I know and value, who I respect, and had them send me back some questions that might be common questions that many of you have. So I want to go through those, and hopefully those will answer some of the things that are surfacing within your own heart as I talk about this master class. First of all, do I need to know about St. Ignatius of Loyola in order to take this master class? The answer is no. Like I said earlier, most of you have some working knowledge of who he is, and I'm not going to go into an elaborate history, but there is some information in the extended reading that will be offered in this course where you could go very much deeply into who he is. Do I need to have gone through the spiritual exercises myself? You don't have to. Most of us, as part of our training, went through at least part of the exercises, or maybe we did the 34-week retreat in daily life where we went through the exercises with a group. So most of us will have some familiarity, but even if you don't, this course is going to be extremely beneficial and helpful. Do I need to know about the exercises? Not necessarily. I'll be teaching all of the dynamics of the exercises in this master class. You'll learn some of the jargon that's common in Ignatius spirituality, some of the words that we throw around that are common in Ignatian circles. So you'll be learning all of that as we go through it. Do I have to be trained in a certain style of spiritual direction to take this course? You don't have to be. I mean, the reality is most programs today in spiritual direction do teach the evocative contemplative method, also sometimes known as the evocative method or sometimes known as the non-directive method. But there might be some programs out there still that teach the directive method or the didactic method. And if you were trained in those, that's perfectly fine. You'll still find this masterclass helpful. And in fact, you might find yourself interested in bringing some of that more evocative, non-directive style into your spiritual direction ministry. Is this course helpful even if I don't intend to lead people through the spiritual exercises? Absolutely. You know, you might be leading someone explicitly through the spiritual exercises at their own pace, or maybe you are a spiritual director leading someone through a 3-day retreat, a 5-day, 8-day, 30-day retreat. Maybe you're a spiritual director directing someone going through the retreat in daily life, that 34-week retreat. No matter what scenario it is, this masterclass is going to be helpful, even if it's simply being with your directee and they're not even formally going through the spiritual exercises. Because here's the truth of the matter. Even if a person is not going through the spiritual exercises formally and explicitly, they are still in the spiritual exercises, because the spiritual exercises at their core is sort of a map of intimacy with God. And so no matter what directee is sitting in front of us, they're somewhere on that map of intimacy with God. And this course is going to help you as a spiritual director to see the map and with greater clarity discern based on graces and fruits, desires, in other words, that they're praying for, and the fruit we see in their lives and the things they say and the things they describe doing. You're going to see with greater clarity where they're at in that process of intimacy with God, which once again is going to help you and I to be more fully present with them where they're at, so that just our presence with them where they're at becomes an encouragement for them to be where they are and to receive what God has for them in that space. Another question that came up is, am I going to cover all of the forms of offering the spiritual exercises? In this course, I'm not going to cover all of them. I'm going to cover the main ones, the 3 primary ways that Ignatius in the spiritual exercises invites us to offer the exercises. But remember, you and I are called to be part of adding to the opus of the spiritual exercises. So there can be a tremendous creativity about how we offer these exercises. You know, if you love horses, you could come up with a whole retreat that uses horses as a mirror to what people are going through in the spiritual exercises. If you love art, you could take what you learn in this master class and develop your own retreat that invites people to use different mediums of art to reverence the graces and fruits of the spiritual exercises. So there's an endless amount of different ways that you and I could offer the exercises. So there's no way that I could exhaust all of those ways, but we'll talk about the primary ones. How long does it normally take a person to complete the course? Now that's very hard to answer. If you as a student just did one presentation every week and somehow fit in the reading and the assignments, then you could probably finish the course in about 14 weeks. But the benefit, once again, is that you can do this at your own pace. that there's not necessarily any hurry. In fact, my hope and prayer would be that every single one of you goes through this masterclass at a pace that allows you to integrate, to savor, to reverence what it is that you're learning and how it connects to your ministry of spiritual direction, whatever form or manifestation that is taking. What types of things will this course help me with as a director and a retreat director? As I mentioned earlier, it's just really going to help you to be present, ever more present, mindful, aware, with a greater clarity as you sit with your directees, with your retreatants. You'll have a greater sense of confidence in hearing and knowing the fruits as you hear them talk about it, which is going to help you to discern with them things like, if they're explicitly going through the exercises, should they be moving forward, or is there a grace or a part of a grace that seems to be missing, and so they're being invited by God back into a different week of the exercises to get something that will help them to move forward in relationship with God and forward in the exercises. So that's very, very important. How long will this course be available on Thinkific? Well, as long as Thinkific doesn't change their program right now, then this course should be available to you as long as you want. I'm uploading it and hope that it's available on my School of Spiritual Formation for years to come. If you're not already familiar with the Deepwardly online School of Spiritual Formation, in addition to this masterclass, I have a number of online retreats for individuals and groups. There are presentations, courses on prayer and Ignatian spirituality, so hopefully you'll have an opportunity to look at some of that. A couple more questions. What is the opportunity to connect with you, Tom? So several of the directors that I sent this out to asked that. What is that opportunity during this masterclass to connect with me? Well, I want to be as available as possible. The easiest way to do that is through my email address, tom@deepwardly.com. But I'm also going to be setting up a special Patreon group for the students who are going through this masterclass. It will be a masterclass student category. If you're not familiar with Patreon, it's a very private, secure, online community where, unlike Facebook, people can't just get on there and make rude and obnoxious comments, but rather it builds a sense of community. So I've had a Patreon blog now for several years. I have people on there in 2 different groups right now as companions who just want my daily meditations that I send out. And then there's a group on there for spiritual directors, and I offer some occasional continuing education for spiritual directors on there. But there'll be a special one for Masterclass students where you can log in, create your account, and that will be a great place to dialogue with one another, to share what you're learning, to ask me questions. It has an app, the Patreon app, so it makes it super easy to hop on anywhere at any time and make some comments or send out some information or ask me a question. So hopefully there'll be lots of opportunities for you to connect with me or other students, because I really desire to be available and to be of help in your ministry. And if you do have any questions about the masterclass, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. I'll definitely be showing my email to you so that you have that. In conclusion, please know that my hope and my prayer is that this masterclass is a beautiful, practical help to you in your ministry as a spiritual director, however that ministry is expressing itself or manifesting itself. It's also my hope and prayer that what you learn here in this masterclass is personally beneficial. That the things that you're learning will be not just information, but transformation for you. Ignatius has changed my life more than any other person who lived, minus Jesus Christ. And I hope that that's the same for you. I hope he becomes an intimate companion for you in a transformative way. I also just invite all of us to be praying for one another as we go through this master class. Just be praying for one another personally, that we will be transformed ever more fully into the image and likeness of Christ that we were created to be, but also that we might be praying for one another's ministry. And hopefully, if I've not met you yet, hopefully I'll have a chance in the future to personally meet you. And maybe that'll be when you come out here to the beautiful Cedar Ridge and do a retreat. If you have any questions, let me know. And may God bless you as you go through this master class.